I'd now like to introduce Charles Chang. Charles is a born entrepreneur with a passion for innovation, active living, and mentoring. Prior to starting Lyra Growth Partners in September of this year, Charles was the president and founder of Vega. Started from scratch from his basement in 2001 and financed by his life savings, a second mortgage on his house, and 4 credit cards, Charles led Vega to become an iconic lifestyle brand of clean, plant-based nutritional products sold in over 20,000 stores across North America. For Charles, this has been quite a journey. It's included facing the challenge, which I think many of the entrepreneurs in this room can relate to, of not knowing where you're going to find the funds to cover your next payroll, of selling 10% of his companies to his employees and allowing them to share in ownership, the always challenging task of expanding into the U.S. market. Then about 3 years ago, bringing San Francisco-based PE firm VMG Partners in for a 30% stake of his business. And then concluding earlier this year with the sale to White Wave Foods for U.S. $550 million. So our thanks to Haywood Securities for sponsoring this presentation, and I'd like you to welcome Charles Chang to the stage, and Charles and I are going to have a little chat, a conversation about his business transition. Come on up, Charles. Yeah. So, Charles, thanks again for agreeing to share your incredible story. There's so much you and I could discuss. It's from business strategies you deployed to the challenges you faced to the incredible culture you created at Vega. But given our limited time today, and this forum being about business transitions, I'm going to focus my questions around your business transition. So my first question is a curiosity, or is the curiosity I have about your decision a number of years ago to sell 10% of your business to your employees. Can you explain how that worked and what your thinking was behind that decision?
Yeah, my main decision around that was I didn't want to do this alone in terms of being the only guy who was staying up late at night worrying about the business. And we'd always believed in an open book management type of strategy where everyone in the company would row in the same direction if they actually knew what was going on. And actually, when you don't share information with your employees, they actually think you're doing better than you actually are, or you're making more money than you actually are. So when you do share it, you get everyone kind of rooting for you. So and also I really felt it was very important not to give options or phantom shares, but actually real shares that they had to purchase with their own real money was really important to get everyone on side. So my key management team all bought in with their own real money, that they had a big borrow steel, friends and family, life savings, second mortgages on homes like myself, which created a pool of entrepreneurs as opposed to an employee team. That was really critical.
And so it sounds like it had the desired impact, obviously, with the ultimate exit.
I think so. I think we're all very happy in the end.
And there are a lot of wealthy former Vega, or maybe even current Vega employees.
Yeah, they're all still running the company. So yeah. That's another proud thing, is that we went through the entire process from start to finish without having to augment talent or anything like that. Our own team went all the way to the finish line, and my team continues to run the business.
Fantastic. So then, about 3 years ago, you decided to bring in private equity. And I'm also curious around your decision to do that. I think most of us would understand that if it was an opportunity to take some money off the table, yeah, I get that. And if it's an opportunity to put money in the bank to help grow the business, we can sort of get that. But my understanding from other conversations we've had, you were looking for a lot more from your private equity partner. So maybe talk a little bit about what your expectations were from your partner and whether those expectations were met.
Yeah, first of all, I lucked out, and I have such an awesome PE partner. I've heard horror stories, both prior, after, and during. You have to take responsibility for whether the outcome's good or bad, and so I ran my own process the first time around without an investment banker, and actually went through and interviewed 30 to 40 different PE firms that were in our space to get a touchy-feely around what they could offer. And everyone could bring money. It's actually really easy to get money. It's getting the right money, getting smart money. So over about a year process, I met with all these different PE firms and got a short list down of people that I really felt could be great partners, because you're going to be in bed with them for a number of years before exit. And you got to pick partners that you feel you can work with really close together. The maximum dollar value at that first raise at that time is not anywhere near as important as the right fit, the skills, the talent, the history, the pedigree that they bring. And VMG had, they did Kind Bar. Prior to that, they did Vitamin Water. I mean, we're talking about people who know success in our space. And so I felt partnering with someone like that could really help us grow, not just the dollars, because we could get dollars. We actually didn't need money. The best time to raise money is when you don't need money. And we had bucks in the bank when we did it. But we wanted the smarts and the whole, having been there before throughout the whole process. Selling a business, most of us only do it a very small number of times in our lifetimes. If we're fortunate enough to do it at all. And, guys like VMG do it all day long. I think that's a key difference to have that kind of guidance.
So what I also found interesting was that you were able to bring them in as minority partners. And we know that most private equity firms like to have control. They do. They obviously depend heavily on management and give management a lot of autonomy, but at the end of the day, they like to have control. But in this case, VMG came in for a minority stake. How hard was it to convince them to do that? And what are the checks and balances if they don't have control? My guess is they had other checks and balances. What did they look like?
So control is overrated. And first of all, it wasn't offered. So I was not going to sell shares that would put me in a minority position. That just wasn't going to happen. So that was...
Despite control being overrated.
Sorry. When I have control, it's not overrated. But no, so actually quite a few PE firms, especially in our space, so I'll kind of define what we're looking for as very fast-growing consumer packaged goods, primarily in the food and bev sector. I'll say that most of the best deals out there are minority deals. Because you're not going to get a founder to give up control at an early stage when there's so much runway left. So the reality is, people like Kind, I can talk about these because they're public, none of these were majority deals. They're all minority. So, we were the smallest check that VMG ever wrote because we just didn't need that much money. But it was still really valuable. And I think that when you talk about what kind of controls you have, if you're betting on management, in my opinion, those types of controls, the financial controls, the voting, that kind of stuff is overrated. You have to be able to count on the management team to get the job done, and you need to be able to know that you can influence them without using the hammer. Because it doesn't work. Entrepreneurs, there's a bunch in this room, how well will you respond to the hammer? Whereas when we talk things out and they give us good case studies and they talk about experiences, they're very influential in changing our minds in many cases because we see the wisdom that they've had. We're also really good at doing our own thing, and they have to accept that too, that maybe there's sometimes, more ways to skin a cat. So I think that there's a lot of give and take around that. And it really is a collaborative marriage. So, it was 4 years with VMG, and we worked very closely together, especially the early stages and the very end, very closely. I've made a lot of great friends out of there, not just business partners.
Now, you mentioned 4 years, which isn't a long time for VMG to have been involved in the business. And I think one of the questions that business owners often face is, when do I sell my business? What's the best timing? We heard earlier this morning about the market right now is sizzling hot, generally for transactions. What were the factors that drove the timing of your sale?
It's intensely personal. The reality is businesses are an extension of ourselves, right? Especially as founders who created them. So in the first round of bringing BMG on, it was because I wanted to take some money off the table for my family in case I kicked it or something happened that was really bad, that my family would be okay. To decide on when the eventual sale was, well, first of all, PE firms typically have a 5-year to 7-year cliff where you kind of have to sell, right, or take them out. So that's obviously one of the things. But we chose a bit earlier because we were ready. In my mind, prior to the starting of this process, I had said if we get to $100 million in sales, that's a time when the big strategics will take you seriously. And if you're smaller than that, if you're half that size, you're going to have a lot harder time. You have discounting for size, right? So at $100 million revenue, we felt that would be the time to go, and so we kind of planned along that accordingly, and that's kind of what happened. We were actually run rating higher than that, but it was one of those things that was kind of a target. Yeah.
So it's public. You sold the business for US $550 million. I understand the U.S. exchange worked very nicely for you from the beginning of the transaction to the end of the transaction.
I have a fun story around that. If we have 2 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like this one a lot because we were going to have a 3-week close, which is pretty unheard of, but we were going to have a very tight close on the deal. And at the time of the signing, the exchange rate was 1.22. And so because the deal was in excess of $600 million Canadian, it was actually around 700 and something Canadian, the Canadian government, the Ministry of Trade, has to get involved. It's there to protect Canada, that you can't just go and sell a Canadian company to a U.S. company or someone else and lose all this great Canadian intellectual capital, jobs, this and that, which is really fair. I think it was done to protect potash and natural resources in the prairies, I think, initially, but it's non-selective. So because the deal was in excess of 600, Ministry of Trade got involved and delayed things by like 75 days. And we were cursed. We worked so hard to get a tight close, an immaculate list of, it was just so well done. And now we're sitting here waiting, twiddling our thumbs for Ministry of Trade to give us the yay and nay. Well, that delay, in that time period, the exchange rate moved 10 points to 1.32, actually almost 1.33. So we made $70 million. So thank you, Ministry of Trade, and all that happened there.
So you've mentioned, you were doing run rating a little over $100 million. I assume that's U.S. dollars?
Yeah, around 120 U.S. roughly.
Yeah, and you sold the business for $550 million, and even if your margins were spectacular, that's a pretty handsome multiple. Talk to us a little bit about...
All PE firms pay that much?
Yeah.
Offering 5 times sales? Well, what? You guys aren't being offered 5 times sales?
What was it? What was it about Vega that attracted this buyer enough to pay that kind of a price?
So I would say it's more about the buyer than it is about Vega. So when you think about a sale, it's the actual buyer thinking, what can I do with this brand that matters, right? You can think all you want about how great you are and this and that, but it really doesn't matter if the buyer doesn't see that. So I think that, the last people in the room, the several people who all bid very highly, they all believe that, having Vega on their roster in their cohort of brands would allow them to go in directions that could increase value greatly. We had a lot of big food companies at the table, and none of them are growing very much. They're kind of flat, if not very stagnant. So they could see in us the ability to grow their business through us, both in additional, like we had the permission to go in a lot of places. Not only would we do nutritional supplements, we could do food, we could do prepared foods, we could do ready-to-drink beverages. We had the permission from our consumers, who were many stark raving fans, who wanted that, and we just hadn't done it. There's also geographic white space because we were really only in North America. We said no to everything else, even though we had lots of offers, to save that for the next guys. We were also not really in all the mass market yet, to save that for the other guys. So we really focused on, and our strategy was, make your sales as big as possible in the fewest number of in the fewest places to get it. So velocity versus ACV, or sales per store, was way more important than the number of stores we were in. And I think that really attributed to the value, because the big food brands could say, wow, you guys are doing 120 million run rate US, and you're only in that many stores. We were at the time only in about 11,000 stores. We hit 30,000 in 1 year as we opened up mass while the process was occurring. So they could see that there's a lot of potential. I think that's the biggest determinant. That and a good process.
Wow. Well, so let's talk about the process. And I guess with any transition, there's stuff that you do before you actually start going out and engaging in the market. often just focusing in on your business. What can we do with our business in the short term here to pretty it up for sale? Was there, outside of just continuing to build your business, what were some of the things that you did in preparation of putting the company up for sale?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, running a very successful business is far more important than putting it for sale. But that being said, assuming that your business is on track and ready, I think you would look at it the way a finance company would look at auditing your business and getting into your books is you could apply that same scrutiny to all aspects of your business. Look at your QC, your SOPs, if you have manufacturing, your ops, procedures, your HR practices, legal, trademarks, things like that. You'd want to look at your business as if you were the outside person coming in. Imagine you wanted to buy a business. What would you look at? And make sure you really hit all those things, because if you get into diligence where they're starting to peek under the, all the romance of the initial term sheets and LOIs are over, and now they're getting in under the hood, you got to make sure that you'd spend the same time on all facets of your business as you do on your financial. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have audits for that reason by the big guys, right? To validate that, hey, my numbers are legit. Well, you can do the same thing for all areas of your business, and it's well worth it. It's actually a great exercise to, even if you're not thinking about selling right now, to run your business as if you were. So we always said that, hey, we need to be fit to sell all the time, even though we knew it wouldn't happen until later. For the last 10 years, we run it that way. We tried to build a business where it was always fit to sell. And we had tons of offers along the way, ad hoc offers. Hey, we'd like to buy you guys. Hey, we'd like to invest in you guys. But we would never take any of those seriously because we wanted to run a process.
And so maybe you can walk us through your process. At some point, you and VMG sat down and said, okay, it's time to put this business up for sale. Maybe walk us through that and right through to picking your ultimate buyer and entering into the LOI.
Yeah. So we kind of set our goal at, when we run rating $100 million, that would be a good time to be ready to do it. So prior to that, we started the process of preparing ourselves, i.e. self-auditing in every aspect of our business. So applying the same diligence to every aspect of our business that you do in your financials, right? So having Deloitte come in and look under the hood for your finances, do the same thing in every area. So we did that along the way, and knowing that by the time we'd go out, we'd actually be ready. And then, I think what's really important too is then to build your advisory team, because you can't do this alone. You have to have, bankers, you have to have accountants, you have to have lawyers.
But you did the first round.
The first one I did by myself, but I had to get.
Is that why you didn't do the second one on your own?
No.
No? Okay.
The first one, I was going to be in a marriage. The second one, I'm selling my business.
I see.
The first one was, who's going to be the best partner to maximize value over the next 5 years? The second one is the biggest return on my investment, right? So dollars were far more important the second time around. If max dollars is what you're looking for, then you want to run a process. Whereas if you want the best, I think, marriage, you want to date more exclusively. So I think that's the whole thing about it was I had very high touch in raising my first round. But in the second round, it was about maximizing value and getting the best terms. I'll say this, terms are every bit as important as dollars. Terms like, hey, are all my employees going to be keeping their jobs? Terms like, is it going to be Canadian run and is head office staying here? Those things are just as important often as dollars. Anyways, back to advisors. So the first thing we wanted to do was build our team. So in every area where we needed advisors, we did little competitions. First thing we did was a banker bake-off. And that basically was bringing in some quality bankers that are all in our space and having them kind of tell us what they think the business is worth and what are the factors that would add or detract from value. That's a great piece of intel to start with that builds the rest of your strategy. So we did that, and we picked our bankers, and then from there we hired our accountants and lawyers and so forth. And we have some advisors in the room here, hopefully. Peter Mogan's here. He helped us with the transaction legal side. I don't know if Deloitte's here. Deloitte did our accounting. So having the team to help guide you and advise you throughout the process is super important, and you have to have it be competitive. I think that if the process isn't competitive, this is why I say if you want max value, never sell to somebody who comes to you and says, hey, I love your business. I see the synergies. I'd like to acquire you. I mean, unless you have a very low value business and that's all you can do, then you maybe have to do that. But if you want to get max value for you and be in control of the outcome, you must run a process. That's my very
strong. Who are your investment bankers?
I hired Mollis and Piper Jaffray. We did a lot of like duplicates. I can talk about that another time. But having more than one advisor can sometimes be good as well. And so we had.
Is that twice the fees, or do they split the fee?
1 point something X fees. But it's all worth it because you think about it. The fees are a very small component in the overall value, and they add enough value, many times more value than their fees. I mean, I think that don't be afraid to spend on fees.
So we were, this morning we heard about the different types of processes going, sort of to one sort of target buyer, very targeted select group, but maybe a dozen or so, 10 or 12, or, sort of a far broader auction. What did you end up doing?
Very, very tight, extremely tight. I don't think we showed it. I don't think we showed the books to more than 30 people. And that's not even the books, it's just the actual
teaser?
The confidential information.
Oh, that one,
but not fully. But I think another thing that's really important. So we were very selective because you got to go through the process of building the universe of buyers. The broader that universe of buyers, the more likely that you're going to have higher value because you have to have many people who would like to buy you, I think, to get the most value. That's really key. And so we actually had done some actual one-on-ones. I think it's really important before you do a broad process is go out and meet with the key people. So I actually flew around and met with the CEOs of the top dozen or so companies I think would be the best partners for Vega and met with them to just get aligned with the C-suite, CEO ideally, and get aligned on do you see value and do you believe where this can go before having the biz dev guys look at it because biz dev is going to be they're going to be surgeons about the numbers, but they may not be as in tune with the strategy side that a CEO and the C-suite team might be. So having that one-on-one was super valuable, and all the main buyers at the end were all from ones that I had cultivated one-on-ones with. Yeah, so I think it helped.
And so ultimately, you take that 30 and you build it down to a relatively small group that you go through the process with.
Hopefully it's not too small.
Yeah.
That last group, the bigger it is, the better.
And so what was that? Was it?
We had a lot.
Did you?
Yeah.
So there's
we had
lots
a good chunk. And the more people interested, the better, right? And then, at some point you do have to go exclusive and go narrower, but you wait as long as possible before you do that, and get people all bought into the value that they think is there. When you're doing your management presentations and so forth, you're creating value. What's really great too is if your business is kicking ass during the process, that adds a lot of value too. Don't do it when do not do a process if you're going downhill. Wait, figure it out, fix it. Don't do it while you're going downhill. Don't even do it when you're flat. Do it when you're going up.
Fantastic.
If you can.
So you got through the process. You did very well. What was your biggest lesson learned during the process?
How much work it is to sell a business. It is a huge, incredibly time-consuming process. I mean, when you think about it, like, for example, selling a house, right? There's how many moving parts to that? A business has so many variables, and everything just takes longer. And you have one side who wants to pay the least amount, right? And have the most hooks. And the other side who wants to get the most value, and have the least. And it is I would say you need to really make sure that your business can run without you before you start a process. I would say that my job was probably for about 9 months, I spent at least half my time day to day involved in selling the business. Half my time. That's you think about that. And it took 9 months from start to finish. Gestation. It was it's a big deal. And so if you're the part of the company that has to be there day to day in the weeds for the business to operate, you could put yourself in a bad position trying to sell if you're not ready. Why? And that's why I had my management team all be on board and so forth. We had to make sure that they could run without me and even without them for a good part time. Because for my management team, for the last several months, I bet it was half their time as well. And doing diligence, 1.5 times job. It's killer. It's a very, very demanding period of time. And so You have to be able to have your business be able to run without you.
So that was another topic that came up this morning is who do you bring inside the tent and let them know that you're selling the business? Was that a big group or a really tight group in your organization?
For us, it was all the VPs and all the directors. So we probably had about, I would say, 15 people that were, well, first of all, our whole company knew that we were going to sell. We run a millennial company where the average employee is late 20s, 5 years experience out of university, and wants to change the world. So people like that need to know what's going on. So we didn't let them know that we were going to be selling. We didn't say exactly when. We gave a rough time frame. And we also made sure that everyone would be very happy about a sale because we take care of them. They'd get a great outcome as well, and that the business would continue on as is. So I think that's really a key part of it. So we had everyone rowing in the same direction for us, knowing that this was going to be happy at some time. And then the inner circle was, of course, all my direct reports plus all their direct reports. Directors and VPs in our business all knew. And it took that because there was so much backup required from those folks, in terms of helping us get what we needed information-wise through diligence to helping prepare a lot of the materials and be involved in the strategy. The more smart minds you can involve, the better. I know that may go against a lot of the people who want to hold their cards close, but when you run a millennially based company, you can't do that. I think you got to be willing to share it, and open book management it all falls in line.
Share with the audience, because you were very generous with your employees after you sold the business, and I think that's we probably don't see enough of that. So share with.
Yeah, between my VP team, directors, and between all the employees, we gave over $100 million away, a lot. And so everyone's very happy. We created a lot of millionaires and a lot of people who will be going out there and hopefully starting their own great businesses and creating another role. I mean, it's no fun selling your business and then hoarding it all and not sharing with everybody, being the only guy celebrating. That's no fun. It was something where we all did it together, and it's just so rewarding that way that everyone is rooting together. There was high morale, not low morale selling. High morale. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great story. So the business is sold. My understanding is you have little involvement, or maybe no involvement now.
I'm on call, but I'm not involved in running the business at all. I'm very close to my team, who's still there running the business, and I'll have some chats with White Wave occasionally, but they don't need me. They don't need me. The business is
thank goodness
great on its own. I know, and I would crash and burn, I'm sure, doing that role. So the reality is, I'm just there to ensure that I can help my guys through this process, and if I'm of any help to White Wave, great. If not, just be there, be around, be on call, if anything. But they haven't needed me very much.
So one of the other scary things for business owners that have built businesses over multiple years is they sell their business. They've got a bank account full of cash, and they don't know what they're going to do next. Talk to us a little bit about what your next stage of life looks like.
So I've been in trouble for my wife because I kind of went right back into things. And so I started, the business that I'm running now is called Lyra Growth Partners. And we're we call it venture growth capital private equity firm, but a little bit different. And,
with a heart, right?
Sure, little bow ties on it. But I'll say that we're different in that it's 100% my own money. So no institutional capital, no syndicates, no co-investments. It's my money, and so it's under my terms. So it's unfettered capital. Pretty much, do what we want, when we want, how we want to do it. Simple term sheets. Really supporting founders, supporting entrepreneurs, and really doing stuff we want to do that we're passionate about. And dollar return is important, but it's not primary. Number two, we provide what I'll call a very brand savvy kind of coaching. We are brand evangelists. We live and die brand. We're all about consumer. And so we're looking for consumer branded companies, packaged goods, food and beverage. We actually like tech as well. And so where we can help in that area, that's what we can do. And the last thing is people-centered. We have a really strong belief that how we built our teams, the culture, the core values, the way we rolled as a team of employees and of owners was so pivotal in creating the value and the sustainability of our business. People don't place enough value on the people, the HR side of things, and it was our #1 competitive advantage. You can talk about great product and awesome execution at shelf and all these things we did okay, but it really comes down to team and people, and you can control that. And you don't have to hire stars. You know, the reality is if you hire really smart people who are dedicated, have the right attitude and the same values, you can create stars. And that's what we've done. We feel is we're all misfits. None of us were really, qualified to do our jobs. Myself and our management team, none of us done this before. But, we created a culture where we could learn, adapt, create, and we held our own against anybody. And I think that's something that, you can really believe in and you can make a big difference in.
Well, Charles, thanks so much. What I didn't realize until a friend of Charles and mine brought it to my attention a little earlier that Charles not only agreed to do this presentation for us, but he agreed to do it on his birthday. It's his birthday today. And we thought that should be recognized. So we have a little cupcake here, a birthday cupcake for Charles to recognize his birthday.
Thanks, Peter.
All right.
It's made of gold. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Charles, thanks so much for spending a couple hours this afternoon with us. Your story is such a wonderful one. It's just great to see this, and I know that through the success you had and the success of your team, that a lot of that money is going to go back into our economy in the way of supporting other entrepreneurs, and that's always good for us. So thanks so much.
Amen.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it. So round of applause. All right, thanks so much. To you, happy birthday to you.
The world's biggest selfie right here. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
That's great.